Welcome back, everyone. We are Simply Bitcoin. We break down the news, the daily fail, meme review, software releases, hardware releases, and the pleb sites. Joining us today, fellow Bitcoiner, creator and founder of CoinKite that makes ColdCard and Open Dimes. That's right, long overdue. We've got NVK joining us. NVK, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, here we go. We are diving into the numbers. Let's do it, people.
Number time! Number time is brought to you by Nodl. They make some of the best Bitcoin nodes, like the Nodl Dojo. Yes, it's in red. That means it's faster to run your own version of Bitcoin Core and the Lightning Network, all in the comfort of your home. Remember, if you don't run your own Bitcoin node, you're using someone else's, so get yourself a Bitcoin node today, like the Nodl.
At the time of this recording, the block height is 735,067. The Bitcoin price, 36,205. Chain rewrite days, 722. Total public lightning capacity, 3,711.75. Moscow time, 2762. Blocks of the halvening, 104,933. And the Samurai Whirlpool unspent capacity. Samurai Whirlpool is a CoinJoin or collaborative spend. It is not a mixing service. And the unspent capacity is 4,539.20. Nico, the numbers.
The numbers.
The numbers.
Dude, so we got a request. There was a pleb that said, instead of doing the million, what's the dollar amount of a million sats, someone requested, what is the dollar amount of 10,000 sats?
Oh, okay.
They said that's a better metric.
Let's do it. Let's go get that metric. So we're looking for 10,000 sats, huh? Let's do it. We've got, all right, so the price of 10,000 sats is $3.60 right now, USD, for 10,000 sats.
Sats dollar parity is coming.
It's coming.
Right?
It's coming. So
it's like nothing, right?
So
$3.
You hear how bullish NVK is, right? That it's coming. We think it's inevitable. But we got someone who tagged us on Twitter, and we were going to talk about this today. And they said, "Hey, what's going on with the price?" All right. So we're not going to give you the TA, but I am gonna bring up some of the things that have happened in the last year, and we could talk about that, right? So this was before Bitcoin made an all-time high. All these things happened, right? So in the last year, Central African Republic adopts Bitcoin as legal tender. Panama, in my opinion, passed a better than legal tender law. El Salvador, of course. We got Portugal, Madeira. You got Cuba. There's 100,000 Cubans reportedly that are using Bitcoin. You have a city in Texas, Fort Worth, mining Bitcoin. I know it was only two or three S9s. It was symbolic, but this is just the beginning of it. So again, the price is the noise, which is why we don't cover it on our channel. We try to stick to the signal, but the signal is that the fundamentals of Bitcoin are just getting stronger. Bitcoin survived a mining ban by the Chinese Communist Party. The hash rate decentralized all around the world, and it's breaking an all-time high today, right? What doesn't kill the honey badger makes it stronger. The price it is, but it's just cheaper sats. It's a good thing for you. Anyways, NVK, you want to help some of our listeners that are a little bummed out by this 8% drop?
I mean, Bitcoin is like 9 million% up since its inception. So like, it's a little weird to be bummed out by 8%. Bitcoin moves 20% on the same day. I mean, who cares? Just wait a little longer.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. And pass it back to you. So NVK, your class of much earlier than Phil and I. So in the beginning, it's definitely difficult, though. Over time, what have you learned? Because there's no end to the Bitcoin rabbit hole. You think you get to the end, and then you keep discovering things new, and then you just keep having these crazy moments. What piece of advice would you give to someone just starting their journey?
Buy, store in your cold card, and forget that you have it, unless you want to add more to it. Okay. Seriously, like absolutely do not look at the price for at least 2 cycles, because the first time you get kicked in the stomach and you go like, oh my God, I bought at the top. And then, you go like, oh my God, what did I do? And then you go and you buy maybe a little more at the bottom, right? And then the price goes up, but then it crashes again. And like you just gotta go through a few of those, develop a little bit of like thick skin. It's like trading is for suckers. Just buy.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that, by the way. Phil?
I have to ask this to NVK, and I think that this will help a lot of noobs or people that are skittish with the price. So tell me this: when you first started, did you also feel like you were late?
Oh my God, yes, and yeah, totally.
You see, it's everyone.
No, it's kind of fascinating because like the price used to fluctuate a lot more, and we're talking about like order of magnitude more, right? So you go like, oh my God, I just missed it. Oh my God, it crashed. Oh my God, I just missed it. Oh my God, it just crashed. Like and then in those days it'd be like, oh my God, it's dead. It's just never gonna go up again. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the price. Many times it's just like it's over. It's just you just gotta like understand that you're buying something to hold for years. Like, don't look at it for at least 5 years.
Yeah, man, bullish. So NVK, one last question. One of the things that we always get, right, because we have a lot of people that are just joining Bitcoin, they start seeing our channel, is, man, I'm too late. The time's passed for me. Is it too late for someone to start stacking Bitcoin in the year 2022?
No, we're still early. Like, it's only been, Bitcoin's bar mitzvah this year, right? Fiat has what, like 100 years as it is. Gold is 5,000 years. I mean, Bitcoin, it's like it's super, 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 super early still. Like we may have like a couple 100 million people in the world that have it. There's 8 billion people coming. Like it's just so early. It's imagine like saying that you're late to the internet when the internet was 10 years old.
It's true. I think but so an excellent point. I think it's hard to see because in the article that I always think of is the famous Paul Krugman article where he's like, the internet is not going to amount more than the fax machine, and just made himself look like a total idiot. I think a lot of people are just stuck in it and they can't see ahead. So I know this is a speculative question, but what do you see happening in Bitcoin the next 10 years? Again, no one knows the future, but
$1 gazillion and it's the end of the IMF. And now we own the WEF.
Woo!
We totally own it. We're running it. Instead of Klaus Schwab, we have Saifedean at the head of it. And we're literally forced humanity to eat beef. Oh. How about that? That's a reasonable timeline for 10 years.
Man, that reminds me of your Twitter handle, right? Deterministic optimism. That is some fucking hardcore determinism. You see what happens? The longer you stay in the rabbit hole, the more bullish you are because you see how
goals, man.
Goals. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Fail. Brought to you by SwanBitcoin.com. Swan is the best way to build your stack with automated savings plans, instant purchases, and soon they're going to have an app that you can download. It's a stacking app by fellow Bitcoin plebs. The link is down below. All right, look, we kind of called this already when the announcement was official for the Central African Republic, that they accepted Bitcoin as a currency, not legal tender, okay? And really not surprised that the IMF has started to come out. Now, let's dive into this garbage article from the IMF. IMF expresses concern over the Central African Republic's Bitcoin adoption. It believes that there are legal, economic, and this is the funniest part for me, transparency issues with Bitcoin adoption. Keep in mind, Bitcoin is the only true decentralized public ledger that anybody can examine anything they'd like on the blockchain. They can build tools that examine all of those transactions if they like. Nobody is stopping them. And interesting that the IMF, of all agencies, is worried about the transparency issues of Bitcoin. Keep in mind, the IMF issues something called SDRs, which no one really ever talks about. But it's another layer of fake money. Anyways, let's keep going into this shit show. IMF has voiced concerns over the Central African Republic's adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender, which that's not exactly accurate. Anyways, they do accept it as a currency, but it's not necessarily under the laws of legal tender. They did not announce it as a legal tender. Anyways, saying it raises a number of challenges for the country and the region. Notice that they don't actually point to any type of true studies, or they just, boom, challenges to the region. The adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender in the Central African Republic raises major legal transparency and economic policy challenges. The IMF staff are assisting the regional and Central African Republic's authorities in addressing the concerns posed by the new law. That's right. See, the IMF is there to help, right? All of these countries that have, mind you, all of them have debt. All of the IMF countries owe money to the IMF, but yet the IMF is here to help. Developing countries in particular stand to gain from the asset class, talking about Bitcoin, as it can help digitize economies and foster innovation, especially in countries with large unbanked populations heavily reliant on remittances. This is true. Very nice. We appreciate that. Making Bitcoin legal tender certainly helps adoption, but when it comes to the larger picture, matters get complicated, even though we can't cite anything. For instance, while Bitcoin helped increase tourism revenue in El Salvador, how nice of them, that's kind of what they're doing to throw crumbs. The risks due to volatility make it unpredictable, and this is what concerns the IMF the most. So as long as it's predictably going down and our value is being depleted constantly and it's predictable, it's all good. But the volatility to the upside, Nico, NVK, we need to worry about these problems, okay? All right, so let's just, before we move to the next one, let's just quickly take a look. Remember, we covered SDRs extensively in a previous episode, but I just wanted to remind everyone, this is the quote-unquote currency that doesn't exist that the IMF issues to countries. The SDR is an international reserve asset created out of thin air by the IMF to supplement the official reserves of its member countries. The SDR is not a currency. It is a potential claim on the freely usable currencies of IMF members. As such, SDRs can provide a country with liquidity. That sounds like money. It just sounds like other fake money on a different level. And let's just quickly take a look before we get the comments from NVK. Let's just take a look here. So the Central African Republic does currently have $210 million of outstanding purchases and loans from the IMF. So again, I ask the question, how is the IMF actually helping any of these countries? And also, what I find incredibly psychotic is that comment about Bitcoin's transparency. This is what I said at the beginning, we never hear about SDRs. We never hear about this layer of money. It never gets added to any country's debt. It never shows up in anything that anyone talks about on the corporate-owned media. But it's there, and countries are beholden to the IMF with this debt. Anyways, NVK, any thoughts on this garbage I just read?
Yeah, I mean, the IMF is essentially an economic terrorist organization, yes. Right? Like, I mean, they're like, hey, do you like crack? I have some, and it's free, right? Like, they pick like the countries that are most screwed, and they go like, hey, let me give you some of this good stuff. I promise you, it's easy payments, right? Like. It's just, like they've been doing this for so long now. It's quite fascinating. But at the same time, I mean, if you're playing this right, or if you're like some proper dictator, why not get the free money either, right? I mean, it's like, I mean, personally, if I was like, El Salvador, instead of telling the IMF to go fuck itself, I'd go and like take the free money from the IMF and buy Bitcoin. Like, why not, right?
It's true. They're giving you the SDRs, may as well convert them into Bitcoin somehow.
That's right. I mean, and it's kind of fascinating because SDIs go way back to Bancor, which was like some idea to create like, a world sort of like solution for world currency. which was supposed to be the free market in a way. I don't know. It's tricky. I mean, SDRs are like a reasonable solution. It's just that the IMF is an unreasonable organization.
And the other piece of it is that I don't like how it seems as though this mechanism is hidden. I mean, obviously, if you go look for it, the information is there, but it's never really mentioned, and I find that kind of disingenuous.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. I mean, they really don't have the best intentions.
I completely agree. I think and here's the signal, right? Why is corporate media giving it's like a sovereign country decides to make something legal tender. We must now get the IMF's opinion and see what they have to say. And I think that's a lot of signal. I think that these people feel like they control the world, man. And I think Bitcoin is
they do control the world.
Yeah, there you go. They do, right? And Bitcoin is a threat.
Yeah, they definitely do control it.
But you see, it's interesting, right? Because they borrowed the SDRs or purchased the SDRs or whatever it is, the Central African Republic. Well, here you go. It's exactly what I said, that they're beholden to them. So now the IMF gets to have an opinion on everything financial from the country. So again, it's a roundabout way to get their tentacles everywhere.
But think about it this way, right? If you were a company and you sell, 90% of your equity to somebody, they might have a say over how you run your business. When you take the money from this evil people, they now technically they're big creditor, right? So you gotta do as you, at least have them participate in the conversation on how to explore your natural resources and keep nothing.
Yeah, no, I agree. How does this end, NVK? Where does this go? Are they just?
It's like I was saying.
Yeah.
Like in 10 years from now, Saifedean is going to be the head of the WEF. It's going to run the IMF, and they're going to be pushing the beef narrative. It'll be great.
Oh man, dude!
Just a matter of time.
Oh man, dude, you're not worried about the transition, NVK? The transition to the beef standard. No.
Hey, my connection is sorry. I missed that. My connection got really screwed up.
I said so. We cover a lot of our show revolves around the transition and all this pushback from governments. I don't think they'll be successful. I completely agree with you, but I think that the transition will be a little hairy. Does that worry you at all?
Yes and no. I mean, what are they gonna do? See the thing that people sort of forget when it comes to this is that politicians are still people, and politicians still need to live in society, right? They just happen to be what's the Rothbard describes them as the political caste, right? So they're just a class of humans, the court people, right? Who get to have their cake and eat it too, in a way, right? But the laws still apply to them to a certain extent. So, look at Nancy Pelosi, right? And stocks, right? So the thing is, they will always carve out, right, loopholes and solutions, good free market solutions for themselves on the things that they have bags, right? So the thing that will best ease our way into the demise of fiat is to have politicians have Bitcoin bags, because they would never go after their own bags. Absolutely never, right? Same for the judiciary, the executive, everybody. Let's just get them all to have the right bags, and we're all gonna make it.
Yeah,
incentives matter. Incentives do matter. Hopefully we do. I know that a couple politicians have already folded to those. Let's see how they played out. Hopefully in 10 years every politician will have a cold card with some Bitcoin on it.
But anyways, Phil, it's time for
The Daily Meme Review.
Brought to you by Citadel 21. They make the best Bitcoin cultural zine. It's stories, articles, comics by actual Bitcoiners. This is the artwork for Volume 10. Every artwork is different, and it's made by Bitcoiners. This is the artwork for Volume 10. It's beautiful. It's all original, too. And they're scarce. There's only 1,000 physical copies made per volume, so you're going to want to get your print of Citadel 21 today before they run out. All right, everybody, welcome to Meme Review, where we review Bitcoin memes, or it would not be a meme review. Anyways, first meme. It's not really a meme. Sometimes we cover images, but it's a very powerful images. This is a tweet by Zach Voel. Dominoes are falling, and they simply cannot stop it. IMF sees risk after El Salvador makes Bitcoin legal tender. Bitcoin adoption by Central African Republic a concern, IMF says. Right, very powerful image. Why do everyone care what the IMF says? I think NVK covered that pretty well. Next meme is by Swan Bitcoin. Bitcoiner explaining DCA, the crypto trader.
That's good.
That's a good one.
That's really good.
Next one by Chris Reed. Back then, the whole world would stop and listen to one guy say what he was going to do with the price of money. Huh? Oh, they're talking about central banking. That's funny.
Oh,
I didn't get it immediately. All right, here we go. By Solomon Ultra. Please don't make me have to explain this. Fellow viewer, shout out, bro. It's deeper than money. The future version of you that sold your Bitcoin. The future version of you that did not. It's pretty cool. Interesting. All right, moving on to the next one. This one's absolutely hilarious by Full Metal Hodl. Funny email from Grandma. I don't know if you listen to the news, so if you don't, here's the latest on crypto space currency. If you are in it, get out. Turns out it's heavily scammed, and young people like yourself are losing thousands of dollars. Grandma. Thanks for the heads up, Grandma. I don't buy cryptocurrency, only Bitcoin, which is different, is actual legal tender, several nation. Thanks. Well, I just want to point out, shout out to that Grandma for knowing how to email. All right, next one. LC Hodl, River Compass, Home Miners. Dude, this one's really fucking good. All right, shout out Samson Mao. Breaking, Bitcoin CEO says no to IMF.
I love it.
All right, last but not least, it is by Alan Watts. No, you can't just save in Bitcoin and focus on your craft. I need you to refresh my phone every minute to check my stocks and NFTs and shitcoin bags. Plus, alt season is coming and Bitcoin is going below 20K. Whatever works for you, bro. One Bitcoin halving later. Bitcoin only? Bitcoin only. All right. Awesome scores. Phil, why don't you give it your score first? I mean, awesome memes. Why don't you give it your score first, and then I'll go.
No problem. Definitely awesome memes, yes. These were straight fire, and I think this is a very fitting score. They are getting the Bitcoin company's Honey Badger. That's right. Gotta love the Honey Badger.
Very nice. Bitcoin nice. I'm gonna give it. The Tone gave me this because I came in 8th in this poker tournament. It's a dealer chip from Unconfiscatable. That's where I saw NVK, and he unblocked me there. It was awesome. NVK, what would you give those memes?
A mug of red wine.
Oh, okay. All right. This is good scores. Anyways, guys, we want to know if you agree with our scores. If you disagree, let us know down in the comment section. Make sure to subscribe to us on alternative video platforms like Rumble.com, our personal favorite, BitcoinTV.com. They don't censor there because Bitcoin TV. And, of course, make sure to join our awesome Telegram group where you can link us some dank Bitcoin memes to review. Anyways, Phil, it's time for
The Daily News.
Brought to you by CryptoCloaks.com. They make the best 3D printed Bitcoin merch, like the famous 3D printed Bitcoin art grenade sculpture. Comes in gold. That means you know it pisses Peter Schiff off. And the famous 3D printed Bitcoin Honey Badger comes in 3 different sizes. And you can take advantage of the link down below to get 5% off CryptoCloaks.com. All right, everybody. This was, I don't know, I don't like this guy because he's a bit of a shitcoiner, but I think this was a big deal. Let's get everyone's thoughts. Bitcoin is a liquid alternative to cash, says Elon. In a recent U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission filing, Tesla Inc. reiterated its pro-Bitcoin position, stating that Bitcoin has long-term potential and is a liquid alternative to cash. The filing also confirmed that the electric car maker did not sell any of its Bitcoin holdings since quarter. I keep mixing those words up. Since the prior quarter, and this to quote one of the Tesla spokesmen, provide us with more flexibility to further diversify and maximize returns on our cash that is not required to maintain adequate operating liquidity. NBK, what are those very fancy words? Maintain adequate operating liquidity.
Yeah, so do you actually want to like explanation on that? I could.
It seems a little complex. No,
it's the opposite. Yeah. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
So like think about it this way, right? You are a big company, right? You have many bank accounts in many different countries, in many different currencies, and it's very complicated stuff, right? Because you have to keep the float. Imagine like you have to pay all your suppliers, you have to pay your employees and stuff, right? So essentially you need float, right? You need capital that's liquid for you to pay for stuff. But you can't just keep a heap of cash in the bank account because, inflation, you have risk of banking shit, you have risk of country shit, you have risk of country plus banking shit, you have all kinds of risks, right? So this is, by the way, one of the reasons why Sailor clued in on Bitcoin, because they were doing business, abroad where banking is crap. So, Bitcoin allows you as a big company to have liquid cash, right? So you have this asset sitting that you don't need permission to send anywhere, right? And literally convert that into fiat in any country and pay the bill. That's a huge deal for people who maintain like the treasuries and all the liquidity for a large company, especially when you get very big.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So, What was the prior alternative? Like before Bitcoin, what would companies have to do, and what problem does Bitcoin solve?
Oh, it was kind of tricky, right? So people would buy local currencies in different countries.
Oh,
because it takes time to transfer. And then you have to hold that shit in their shitty banking. Imagine holding Argentinian pesos. Oh, yay! Right? Like, I don't know tomorrow, but I need to have fiat there because there's also capital controls. So you can't just move money fast. And most countries will have some form of capital control, right? Like, including the US. Not all transactions make it. Some transactions get held for review and shit like that. So then you have to hedge the currency, right? So you would have other trades that are hedging the currency directly or indirectly, right? Like it becomes very complicated very fast, right? Sometimes you're gonna use like insurance, sometimes you're gonna use collateral. Like it gets very complicated, and it depends on each country. Bitcoin is so simple. You buy, and if you can just like figure out your Bitcoin price strategy, right, you can do this a lot better.
That's very awesome. Phil, you have any thoughts on this, bro?
I just want to touch back on something NVK said that I think that I don't know how many people are really paying attention to how much that means, but this is very important about Bitcoin. You're absolutely right. Anybody can hold it and then sell it in any country in the world. And I'm just thinking to myself, what other asset could anybody do that with? Like they're just
You're gonna put like a truck of gold in a private jet. The private jet won't take off. Like,
it's true.
Like no, like you don't understand. Like it's like so. Think about it this way: a small child worth of gold, okay, is worth about say $1 million. Okay, like if you need to transfer $1 billion. That's a lot of children in an airplane. Let's make them into adults, right? Like, I mean, like, this shit becomes out of control very fast. Airplanes are not good with a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's capital controls on that. You can't just fill up a jet full of gold and fucking go to another country. They might object to that.
And not only that, but think of the security you have to hire. Even if you were able to do it.
What if the plane falls?
Of moving it.
What if the plane falls with all the money? Are you going to get insurance on that? Imagine the insurance. So we have a transaction. We need to buy more batteries for Tesla. Okay. I have a PJ full of gold. Okay. can you get me insurance on that? They're gonna look at you like and think, like, are you retarded? So then what's their next option, right? Like you commandeer an army C-30, right? Like a proper airplane that can carry a lot of weight. I don't know if the country is gonna go with that. Are you gonna put in a ship? It's gonna take a month or two to get there.
But
like, people don't understand, okay? Like when you're trying to carry like a few grand, whatever, right? Like, I mean, even the airport doesn't object to that. You just have to like say that you're carrying it. You might have to explain yourself. But like, as soon as you're trying to carry, and now this is dollars, which the next country might not accept. So with gold is the next best alternative, but then gold shows up on the X-ray at the airport, right? So like, there's only so much gold you can have in your butt. Right, so like you can't really get that through. So if you're trying to carry real money, right, for a person, there is nothing but Bitcoin. And if you're trying to do this as like a large entity, like a big corporation, there really is nothing else.
Yeah. No, it's true, and I never thought it's so easy to send and
you can send $1 trillion. I can send $1 trillion to a QR code on this call.
Yep.
I mean, I don't have $1 trillion. I mean, Bitcoin is not worth $1 trillion right now. But hey, if it was and I had it, I could send it to you on a QR code right now.
And you know what? You could do it for less than $2 too.
Yeah.
You could do it for very little.
I would do 1 sat a byte and wait. I'm cheap, man. I am
right
cheap.
There, an OG. He knows. He knows that mempool is going to clear. He knows that transaction's going to get in.
Oh man,
we're going to make it.
And not only could you send it, you could store it in your mind. If I don't know if anyone's willing to memorize 12 words, and that's the only backup. But theoretically, perhaps if you're under pressure, you could do that. Anyways, I want to talk about the new MK4, which is the next version of the ColdCard. It's the updated version. I'm gonna ask CK some basic questions that I know the answer to, but I think he's gonna explain it much better than I do because this is what he does. These are some things of the MK4. It has a USB-C connector, unlimited memory, no Bitcoin transaction size restriction. Oh, that's awesome! Really, I did not know that part. NFC tap. You're going to have to explain that to us, NVK, even though I asked you backstage at the Bitcoin conference, but I'm going to ask you again. Even more security, dual SE, dual secure element, extensive duress pin, multi-vendor solution, and USB virtual disk mode. And that, I saw, look, here's a little picture of that. Looks really, really cool. Anyways, NVK, before we get into this, because I know a lot of people are going to ask, because there's a lot of people getting into Bitcoin, what is that? What is the ColdCard? What does it do?
So, ColdCard is essentially a hardware wallet, right? A Bitcoin signing device. So you should never have Bitcoin keys on a computer because computers have, your porn, your, naked Britney Spears.exe, right? Like you click twice on that, money gone, right? So don't keep like private keys on computers. That's what ColdCard is for. ColdCard, you have your key, it's a very secure device. It's designed to hold keys and sign Bitcoin transactions. So we've been doing this for, over 11, 12 years now. Sats are much safer that way. ColdCard is the one we offer. It's a very good hardware wallet. We're on the 4th version now, shipping, yay. People are starting to get theirs. It's kind of awesome. And the new one does have a lot of new features. We tend to try to launch a new sort of hardware update every couple of years or so, because things evolve. Security is a moving target, and the network evolves too. Yeah. So, most hardware wallets always sort of like one big bottleneck for them is transaction size, not in amount of dollars, but in amount of bytes. So, for example, you have a big multi-sig transaction, or you have like you have all your mining, tiny little inputs from.
I was about to ask you that. Yeah. I'm like, I was waiting for you. I was like, okay, but can it handle mining deposits?
Yes. So, well, to the extent ColdCard is no longer the bottleneck.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now in the market is probably the hardware wallet with the most amount of memory that you can find. And what that means is Bitcoin network still has a limit for a transaction size in bytes, right? So ColdCard will take as many as the Bitcoin network would take, and sign it all up, boom, send it out. So it does help with that. So two reasons why we increase the memory on that is, one is people wanted to do complex multi-sig transactions, and two, all the miners that I think all the miners use ColdCard because we get all their emails. and they really wanted to consolidate mining pool tiny outputs through their ColdCard. So that's a huge one. And it gives us more memory room to add more features as well.
Yeah.
Our latest firmware now can send to Taproot addresses, which is really cool. Which nobody uses yet. But it's there.
It's there.
What else?
I'll get to it, MVK. I have all the lists of the features. I just wanted so that you could give a definition of what a hardware wallet is. Now, follow-up question, MVK. Why would someone want to have a ColdCard versus a Trezor or a Ledger?
Okay, so Trezor is not secure, right? It's a very good UI device, right? It's like they take different sets of trade-offs, right? But it's insecure. So what that means is you have to use a passphrase, and you cannot trust the firmware. So if you're doing large transactions, or you leave it on your desk or whatever, there is the risk somebody could alter the firmware and even steal your passphrase, for example, right? So there is a myriad of concerns there. If you're using for multi-sig, it's fine. If you're using for passphrase, be cautious. Make sure the firmware is always up to date and stuff like that. So it's tricky. It's full of shitcoins, and it does not have like 1% of the Bitcoin features that we have, because we are a Bitcoin-only device. So we support all the Bitcoin features because we don't have to break our features to add Bitcoin stuff, right? Because it's all Bitcoin-based. The Ledger device, on the other hand, is a very secure device, but it's closed source, so you cannot trust it. And also, it's full of shitcoins. And it has a tiny little screen. It's not for me. I'm friends with them. They're great people. They do make a good device, but it's definitely not a set of trade-offs that I prefer.
Yeah.
ColdCard is sort of like, it's open, you verifiable code. You can even see the stuff, like the parts inside is clear. So it's essentially like don't trust me kind of device.
Yeah.
You can verify everything. It's extremely secure physically. Nothing is infallible, but it does buy you time in case an attacker gets hold of it. Supports passphrase, supports everything. It really is a device for Bitcoiners.
So let's talk a little bit about the design decisions, right? You decided to update the USB port to USB-C. Is there any particular reason that you want to do that? And I also want to mention, which I have this as a standard on all my ColdCards, you have an option to make it power only. Why USB-C? Okay,
there's many reasons. USB-C now is essentially becoming the standard, right? Like for everything new. So cables and just making life easier. The connector is a lot better.
Yeah, that's true.
So like it lasts longer, it doesn't break, it doesn't come off. Because people were pretty vile with these devices, right? Like, I mean, they've seen the people have done to ColdCards. We tried, and we can do the tolerances on the case around the connector better. It's just like a lot of little things like that. Power is better delivered on that as well. It's just a better connector. It's the evolution of it.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit about AirGap SneakerNet, it's a very fancy, and I didn't know this when I was getting into Bitcoin. So like an idiot, I asked your co-founder, I was like, what is sneaker? And he's just like, are you serious? So essentially what that is you create a transaction on your PC, and then instead of connecting your device to your hardware wallet, in this case the ColdCard, what you do is the ColdCard is powered independently, ideally to something that isn't connected to a computer. It's just power. You guys sell like a little device where you could connect it to a battery directly if you have a hardcore tinfoil hat. And essentially, you create the transaction on your computer, you put that on an SD file, you put that into your cold card, you sign the transaction on your cold card. After you're signing the transaction, you send that back to your computer. So, yeah, is that a good explanation? Because 3 years ago, I would have made a fool of myself.
So Sneakernet is essentially asynchronous, right? So it means there is no two-way conversation way of transferring data, right? There might be a USB stick. Like, I mean, think about it this way. Nuclear facilities, right? Nuclear energy facilities, right? They're not connected to the internet because they know they're going to get hacked, right? So the CIA and Mossad had to go through the extent of creating that virus stucknet to like get into to the system, and like you'd have to be a plebe with some serious problems for somebody to go through that extent to come after you, right? There is a quote. Let me read this quote to you so you guys understand. Okay, the only system which is truly secure is one which is switched off and unplugged, locked in a titanium lined safe, buried in concrete bunker, and surrounded by nerve gas and a very highly paid armed guards. Even then, I wouldn't stake my life on it. So this guy, his name is Gene Stepford. He was, this was decades ago. He was the guy who did the computer operations audit and technology for Purdue University and I think the Army. So the thing is, nothing is unhackable, right? And we don't know the bugs that we don't know. So if you just don't connect the thing to other things, it's very unlikely a remote guy can access your stuff and steal it, right? Like, I mean, that's like a major innovation right there. Just don't fucking plug it in.
Like, it's phenomenal that this is a major innovation.
Right? I mean, like, it didn't exist. I mean, it didn't exist for Bitcoin before ColdCard came along, right?
Yeah.
Like, so like, we're like, okay, like this is how you do security. Well, let's just not fucking plug it in, right? So we created a more sort of like sophisticated and proper way of doing that, and especially based on PSBT, the partially signed Bitcoin transaction files and all the good stuff. So for the people who need to hold a lot of money or are paranoid or just don't want to have to think about it, right? Like, I like to sleep at night, so I keep shit offline. So this is a great way of handling it. You know, is that a good solution for you to do your everyday Bitcoining? Probably not, right? For that, you have a second cold card that you plug on your computer. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you can have two. You know, like there is nothing, and
you should have two
three.
anyways for redundancy.
Yeah, you should.
That's right.
You know, like, it doesn't matter how great the hardware is. I have two of them, so and I think it's awesome.
Anecdotally, so like the average CoinKite customer buys three. That's the average per. Yeah, no, it's just, it makes sense, right? Like, you have like one for redundancy beside the other one that might even have both have the key, and then you have another one that's just blank somewhere else. I have piles, but you know, for me they are cheaper. So.
No, at least I have about 8 or 9 in my room. I hand them out to people. Like, it's just that's the best way. And the open dive, if it's a really good friend, you know, the special edition orange one or the low key green one, which is badass. I think I gave one to you, Phil.
You gave me both of those, and I keep them. That's actually part of my collectibles. I don't use them; I collect them. So,
all right. So NVK. Now let's get to the really, in my opinion, these are the most neat features, which is you guys added the NFC tap. What is that? How does it work?
Okay. Have you ever tapped a credit card to pay for something?
Yes.
Okay. It's the same idea of tapping, but it's definitely not like that. So. Because
like,
you're not going to.
Oh, my Bitcoin's gone!
No, it doesn't work like that. So the idea is, there's a lot of people who want to have their secondary or tertiary code card to work with their phones on the go for their spending or whatever, right? So we wanted to give you an interface that's very good for that, or at least to just give you, say for example, you want to give the phone an address. right? And you have like, you don't have the latest iPhone. And, you know, realistically speaking, QRs suck because, you know, QRs are great on demos, but when you actually do QRs in real life, it's always kind of a problem, especially if there's more data on the QR, right? So NFC is like a very cheap radio solution. It's been available in phones now. The payment industry uses, and it's like essentially the future, right? Because cameras are stupid. So what's happening with the ColdCard and the NFC is you're going to be able to essentially, like, you put close to the phone and you can talk to each other, right? ColdCard can take a PSBT file, sign it, and send it back in that transaction. And it could be a lot of data. So it could be, you know, like a large transaction. It could be a big multi-sig thing. And then it gets more interesting when we get into MUSIG and threshold signatures and Taproot and all that crap, because it's going to need interactive, right? So you might need an interactive signature that might need to have the device live. NFC is going to be great for that. You want to just like quickly send to an address, you're going to be able to use for that. So essentially any kind of data that ColdCard can send via USB or microSD is going to be available on the NFC. It's already there. It's just that there's not, you know, the wallets are still integrating and all that stuff. But that's sort of like the view one of this. And then later on, maybe on Mark V, ColdCard could be host, so you can tap two multi-sig together and do all kinds of crazy shit. But just today, ColdCard is the client, can tap on a phone, do transactions with that. We think it's a very good way to start pushing Bitcoin, sort of like in a good interface for people to do. Yeah. Especially because there's the cards coming, like Sats card and Tap and all that stuff. They're also going to use NFC.
I have a Sats card.
There you go. Blocks, which was Square hardware wallet, is also going to be NFC. I was talking to the guys from Ledger. They're also looking, oh, look at that. Sats card. Ah.
It's really cool. You just deposit the Bitcoin there and then you spend it, right? Through that?
That's right. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Okay. So,
yeah,
MVK.
NFC is awesome. And it comes disabled. So, like, it is off. And if you want it really, really off, you can actually scrape a little piece of PCB on the microSD slot there, and it's gone forever. So, like, for my deep cold storage, I'm going to scrape them all out.
Very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. But you could always disable it in the settings, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Okay. It comes disabled. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So, so talk to me about the last thing, which is the virtual disk. Looks really cool with the. Let me pull up the image so you guys could see what I'm talking about, because it would suck describing it. So MK4 can emulate a USB disk drive, so sending PSBT files could be a drag and drop. So is this replacing, like, for example, like I use Electrum. I've always I'm a big fan of it. Is this going to replace the fact that you can connect your ColdCard and instead it's just going to look like a USB drive instead, or?
Yes. So there's a few things that are going on, and there's more features coming for that thing. So right now, essentially, if you plug into your Mac, and if you have that on, and you plug in your Mac PC or your phone, it shows up as a drive. And if you just drop the PSBT or save PSBT to that, it shows up on the ColdCard screen, or you want to sign this.
Yeah.
And it's like, it is a super, super secure connection, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Even though it is USB, is extremely limited to that. It's not like USB serial. It's like, it's not really talking like USB as you understand. It's just like as if it was a dumb USB drive.
Gotcha. Okay, and that's replacing the old USB functionality where it is kind of
it's all available
both,
too.
Both. Okay.
Yes, we believe in options. All the options. So the cool thing about this as well is it's not available yet, but it's coming in future releases. One is you're going to be able to store your skeleton file there. So you're going to be able to store your Electrum wallet file encrypted in your ColdCard or microSD encrypted. Okay, so you don't have to leave your Electrum file in your computer.
Oh.
So when you plug it in, you click twice, it opens Electrum. Yes.
Okay, that's pretty badass.
Yes.
That is pretty badass. Okay, that is
it's
really
gonna work
cool.
for Core, and it's gonna work for Wasabi, and it's gonna work for Sparrow, and it's gonna work for all of them.
That is that's a big game changer, man. And I'm assuming, yeah, of course, you guys are gonna work with the wallets, and then man,
We'll have to. It's all open standards.
Oh man.
No. Like the way this is designed is that nobody needs permission from anybody to make it work.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Okay.
And you're going to be able to store arbitrary data there as well eventually too. We're just figuring out like the best way of doing it. So if you want to pluck your passwords.txt in there, you can keep it there too.
Very cool, man.
There is more things coming on that are going to be pretty awesome, like keyboard emulation, all kinds of shit.
Okay, super cool. All right, I think this is the most awesome part, and this is the last little piece, NVK. Okay, so this meme perfectly explains it. So first I have to explain what a $5 wrench attack. So first of all, your biggest threat is not a hacker, right? It's really someone finding out that you have Bitcoin, so they show up to your house with the $5 wrench. And I think this, or a gun, or whatever, but they call it a $5 wrench is because it only costs $5 to buy the wrench. And I think this meme perfectly explains how a lot of us think about this, especially in the beginning. Crypto nerd's imagination. His laptop encrypted. Let's build a multi-million-dollar cluster to crack it. No good. It's a 4096-bit RSA. Blast. Our evil plan is foiled. What would actually happen? His laptop is encrypted, drug him, and hit him with his $5 wrench until he gives us the password. Now, how do you mitigate against that? Well, we're very big advocates for multi-sig and specifically geographically separating your keys. If you don't have access to it, neither do they. But the problem with that is they'll still hit you over the head, right? So there's other options, right? The brick me pin, which is kind of this nuclear option where you put in a certain pin of your choosing into the cold card. Don't test it because it will just literally brick it. You could do that, but it will just erase the gold card and perhaps they get angry and still hit you. But there's something called the duress pin. Now, the thing about the duress pin is essentially you could trick the attacker into making you think, hey, this is my actual balance, right? And maybe you put a little breadcrumb in there, maybe a Bitcoin or 0.1 or 0.25, whatever. It's not, in the unlikely event that this would happen to you, it has to be enough so they go away and not hit you with the $5 wrench, but it's still not gonna, change your life, right? So that's the idea of the duress pin. MVK, did I explain that correctly?
Yeah, you totally did. But then we wanted to expand that greatly, right? So the idea is we don't want an attacker to know what the cold card options are. Right? Because then he's going to go, you're giving me the duress. This is bullshit. Right? So what we did is we created infinite options. So it's a total labyrinth. And the poor guy is going to look at the code guy and say, fuck it. I give up. So the idea is it's because it's not a set amount of options, right? Like they simply cannot know which permutation you have of options, right? So what happens now is it's what we call trick pins. So you can essentially create a little story of what the pins do. So you can have a pin that is both duress and erases the seed. You can have a pin that's it's a countdown and doesn't erase the seed. You can have a countdown that erases the seed. You can have a countdown that then goes into duress. You can have, so your permutations, whatever you want it to be. And that just creates this vacuum, right, of knowledge. We're trying to create an asymmetry of like knowledge, right? And slow down the attack. So attacker comes and says, I know this, I know A, B, C, and I have 5 minutes. Okay. So what we're doing is attacker comes and I say like, hey, listen, there's 23 letters in the alphabet. So like you have A to Z to deal with. And you don't, even though you only have 5 minutes, we're going to make it take 24 hours.
Yep.
So So attacker now has a problem, right? Because they are on a timer in general, so they might have to leave. They might take the device with them or whatever. So you can create the story that suits your sort of security needs. But having a countdown is a huge thing, slowing down the attack. And then having a plausible, deniable sort of alternative is also good, right? Like, you have enough Bitcoin in your Duros wallet that they will believe it and they will leave. Another thing too is maybe making it stop with the brick me. I like the brick me more for state actors because they can't beat you. Yeah. Like, I mean, in technically, maybe in practice they can, but if you brick the device is bricked. I mean, there is no obstruction of justice there either, right? Because the device is gone.
Yeah. No, and it honestly, I have this like kind of little scene in my head where how in airports they say, hey, don't travel more than $10,000, and eventually they'll kind of wise up to that. Which, by the way, Bitcoin changes everything. It's gonna have to change because of just how radically innovative this technology is. But I have the movie scene in my head where it's like, what's on? You're just like, I don't know. It's like, I'm gonna have to keep this, and you're just like, all right. Take it, That's it.
No, I'll put the pin for you. That's why I created that option. Like, it was like, let me help you with that, sir. Oh, it bricked. Oh
no. I'm sorry. You can keep it though.
No, but like, this is why, for example, it's so problematic, right? To use a device that's not physically secure. So it costs about $13 to take a seed out of a Trezor. And, you're going to start seeing in airports, like they have a little machine that copies the memory of your phone. They're going to have a little machine that you stick your Trezor in and it takes the Bitcoin out.
Yeah.
Like, so like it really is important to have a certain threshold of physical security, because if they take it to a ColdCard to a lab, even though it has not been demonstrated to us that you can take the seed out of a Mark III, they have demonstrated they can take the seed out of a Mark II for a couple, like, was it $250,000, right? But like, you're dealing with state actors here, right? I mean, they can print the fiat to pay the lab. So given an infinite resources and infinite time, they will get into anything. Yeah. So we need to buy time, right? And we need to address the issue while the time is running.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing is, it really radically changes the balance of power, right? From the state to the individual. And I just think that in itself is going to change everything, because it's like, fine, right? They could do that with a couple of people, but could you imagine millions upon millions of people holding?
It's hopeless.
It's hopeless. It's not going to give them the same return on violence that they used to have, right? So, yeah, man.
I mean, what are they going to do with multi-sig? Like...
Or geographically,
I only have one key with me. Like, can I travel now? Like,
geographically separate your seeds in different countries. That is the gold standard, in my humble opinion. But anyways, Phil, there was an open source software release today. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Software releases brought to you by CipherSafe. Check them out, cyphersafe.io. Store your seed. Make sure it's secure. This is no joke. Store it in the Cypher wheel or store it in the all-new Cypher grid. They both come with a tamper-resistant wire, but the grid also comes with a punch tool. All right, we've got Tor version 0.4.7.7 that was released. It is down below in the show notes. Don't forget to check us out on our audio-only platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. If you want to stream us sats, check us out on fountain.fm. You could stream us sats with Breeze.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. All right, guy. Oh, wait. Yeah, you finished this podcast shout out. Anyways, okay. Guys, that was our show. Before we go, I want to give a very special shout out to our clothing sponsor, RepresentLTD.com. They just came out with Bitcoin merch. It's really cool. You can take advantage of the promo code down below to get 10% off anything off the RepresentLTD.com store. I also want to give a very special shout out to our awesome guest, the legendary NVK. You can go give him a follow. He is the founder of CoinKite, and they make the awesome ColdCard. Get yourself an MK4. It just dropped. It's shipping. It's my personal hardware wallet of choice. I love the ColdCard. I've been using it for a long time. It also taught me a lot of stuff about Bitcoin that I wouldn't know before. Anyways, guys, that was our show. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Of course, you want to continue hearing the Bitcoin news from the pleb perspective and the catastrophic fails from the WEF. That's going to be taken over by Safety. Definitely consider subscribing to Simply Bitcoin, and we'll see you on the next one.
To quote our awesome guest, imagine saying you were late to the internet when it was 10 years old. Zoom out.